Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mathieu and Harold Crooks.
Well, I'll start off with a question. How do you begin to tell a story like this?
Well, early on, we after Denis Arcand, the legendary Quebec director, told Daniel Louis that it was really too complicated, one of the first things we realized is that the film would be inspired by rather than an adaptation of Ronald's book, and that we really wouldn't look at it historically, but we would try to identify the pitfalls that he had seen in previous civilizations and find them in the present. And that was a big part of our effort. And then also, Mathieu was very convinced that in order for this to be a cinematic and emotional experience, as well as an intellectual exercise, that we would do it without narration. So that made it all the more of a challenge to weave together.
Could we have the house lights up a bit, please? Well, not these, with the house lights. Can't see anybody. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, thanks to everyone again, and before I forget to mention it, again, it's very important if you like the film to vote. So sorry yeah, because it will help us to get wider distribution, and also as you can imagine, we've got a tremendous amount of footage and fantastic interviews and very inspiring interviews that couldn't make it into the film that we're going to start publishing on our Facebook page and on our website. So if you have a Facebook account, you can search Surviving Progress and like it, and you'll see new material from this project coming out very soon.
Question, what were some of the problems with filming on such a worldwide scale, and did you run into problems with access, for example?
Obviously, access is so central to the success of a documentary, and it's really. I'm going to email him this evening. The Czech gentleman who teaches at the University of Manitoba, who seems to have been maybe the most popular interview subject in the film, and he is a remarkable multidisciplinary scholar. He refused for a year to be in the film. He said, if people want to know what I think, that they can go read my books. And he finally, after about a year, we phoned him and we said, Vaclav, we really need you in the film. He said, well, he said, we've had a fire here in the faculty building at the University of Manitoba, and I don't have an office. So we said, fine, Vaclav, we'll rent a hotel room in downtown Winnipeg. So then he said, okay, when are you coming? He said, we're coming in a few days. So, those are the kinds of things. It was a question of persistence.
But also research. We've had a tremendous researcher on this project, Nancy Marcotte, who really, is part of the creative team, and we that's right. She got us the access to the Brazilian squad in the middle of the Amazon, Ibama, and so we weren't, flying to China or to Brazil without knowing where we were going, without pre-arranged interviews and pre-interviews, and so it's just there's no secrets. It's just time and research, basically.
Please.
Yeah, just find another planet or modify genetics, and there was just a few of them that actually said limit the amount of stuff. I mean, George Lucas or Stephen Hawking talking about, we gotta go and find another planet instead of something like let's just limit what we're. I found that pretty amazing. That kind of people had such out there solutions.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what's the question, but yes.
I guess you didn't find that interesting that
Well, there was a conscious decision made by Harold and I to leave room in the third act of the film to debate and to feature some conflicting points of views. But of course, I think the filmmaker's point of view is pretty obvious, and that's why we placed this gentleman Vaclav Smil towards the end, after advocates of technology such as Greg Venter or Stephen Hawking. I'm not sure if you want to add something, Harold.
Down here.
I just wonder if you have a response to what there will surely be some comments from the right side of things saying that with the economic crash, now is not the time to be telling people to buy less and limit. So I'm just wondering what your response would be.
The question is, has there been a response, or are you anticipating a response from the right about the fact that this is not the time in these difficult economic times to be thinking about the future?
Well said. I think you rest our case. I mean, that will be said, and I think the importance of a film like this and all the other efforts that are being made to dethrone a certain kind of hyper-consumerist market fundamentalism, that there probably is no better time than when the confidence in that belief system, what Ronald Wright refers to as ideological pathologies that have driven past civilizations over the edge, and the current ideological pathology is this belief in that kind of that kind of unregulated market fundamentalism. And I won't go on and on, but I think that consumerism is a part of that mindset. That is not to say there are not profound, kind of human needs that have to be met, and social wealth has to be, directed towards the needs of the majority rather than the needs or wants and desires of the minority. So there are a myriad ways in which to redesign our local and national and global economies. That it's a question of the priorities, and I don't think there's any. This is the time when the confidence in the ruling elites is so shaken, and it's so it really goes beyond. It's across, it's sort of spreading across the political spectrum.
I just wanted to say I really liked the film, except I was disappointed towards the end. You were talking about individually us cutting down on our stuff, but what about us all working together collectively in small groups and large to change things, to challenge the powers that be?
Well, I think we are trying to address that issue with the chapter in the film called The Planetary Brain, where this is actually one of the rare benefits of technology, is how communication is connecting us all together and raises the global awareness. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how. Do you want to say something?
Well, I hope that is utterly implicit in the film. That the whole conversation about moral, that ultimately, I think if there's a takeaway message of the film, it's that there is no technological fix. That our hope for our imperiled and unsustainable civilization lies in redesigning it in ways that enlarge social justice, and to the extent that the drivers of social justice are people coming together in a myriad of ways to define what the new social forms are, that it's kind of really implicit in our film. But to the extent that I guess that's yet another argument for your help in spreading word, to the extent that you desire the whole kind of thrust towards consumerism this message to kind of spread into the most remote cineplexes on the continent and beyond, you have to help us. And that here's, is an example right here of collective effort towards a new kind of future, a redesigned future.
I mean, as Vaclav Smil says, and as Colin Bevan, the No Impact Man, says, it starts with yourself. We can't be judgmental about that, and it really starts with yourself. That doesn't mean that we can't collaborate together.
On the aisle, please.
Yes, I know that the author of the book is quite a big promoter of nuclear.
I can affirm that Ronald Wright is not an advocate of nuclear, and does not believe that nuclear is the solution to.
Okay. Anyway,
and I mean, I think we've seen a pretty good example of that with what happened in Japan recently.
Okay, I have my information wrong then. Maybe I'm mixing them up with somebody else.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably.
I have a sort of a comment question, and that is, I love that you did touch on the aspect of the possibility of the evolution through the collective brain and the internet and all that, but you know what? You didn't make it strong enough. It was just sort of there, and you really need to follow up more on that, and also give people some kind of hope. I mean, these kind of films leave me angry and upset and frustrated, and what do I do? So it'd be nice to have that, like some practical suggestions on what can be done to make change happen. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I love the film; it really nails a lot of great stuff.
Well, I appreciate your comment, but the thing is, there isn't a magic bullet, one solution. And as Vaclav Smil says, it's complicated, and it's hard to predict, what's going to happen in 20 years. So, it starts with yourself, with every decision you make in your own life, consumption-wise, politically.
It would have been nice to hear someone say that.
Thanks. I'm going to go to another question up top, please.
I was just wondering,
Are optimists or pessimists, and whether making this film renewed their hope for opportunities for humankind?
Well, I'll let Harold answer that, but for myself, one thing that makes me hopeful is what's happening in Wall Street right now. I mean, the Occupy Wall Street movement is pretty inspiring. I'm going to be in New York in a couple of days, and I can't wait to join the movement. And I mean, that's very hopeful, considering when we started making this project, the American government hadn't even done anything to sue the banks, and now a couple of weeks ago the American government sued the banks for what happened in 2008, and we're seeing a massive popular movement to protest against financial elite practices. So that gives me hope, personally. And that's what I observe in my generation and in my group of friends. And I think this outrage is the first step to the next step.
We have time for 2 more questions, please.
I just wanted to,
The question is about the concept of cradle to cradle, and I mean that would, in terms of living lighter on the planet, without, as Vaclav Smil says, surrendering our standard of living, and ending up in the gutter. There's no way forward without the introduction of those forms of redesign of material society, the material world, and cradle to cradle is obviously a big part of it. And just for my part of the answer to the gentleman up top, I mean, in terms of, do you leave this pessimistically or optimistically? I think for me, after this journey of many years with Mathieu, what I have become profoundly convinced of in a way that I didn't really understand and believe as deeply as I do now, when I began this 4 years ago, is that there really are no technological fixes to the threats that our global unified civilization, that we really are dependent on what we different moral progress. That's human values that are going to get us through all the design concepts, all the myriad of ways in which we, humanity, respond to this crisis will flow out of a sense of the necessity for moral progress. And I just think that, and we've showed this film to young people, and I think, they come away feeling very kind of empowered and in trying to understand why that's so. I think that because they get that message, that there is, there is a way in which individual human beings acting together to expand the horizons of social justice, and all that flows from that in terms of the design of our technology, of the designs of our society, and all the technological elements that go into it come out of that expanded moral horizon.
Left out of a film like this?
Well, they weren't. Marina Silva is an Aboriginal from the Amazon.
The question is, briefly stated, that a lot of what this film pushes us towards are things that we've heard or have been part of an Aboriginal tradition for centuries. Why was that not more a component of the film? Briefly stated.
I think it is an important element of our film. Marina Silva, who is a child of the Amazon rainforest, I hope people agree is an important presence in the film. Jim Thomas, the activist who addresses issues of synthetic biology, belongs to an international NGO called ETC that is completely wound up in peasant farming issues and the rights of Aboriginal people. So it is for us very, very present in the film.
Do you hope you make it more of a global theme?
That would be another question. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mathieu also wanted to mention, please don't forget to vote on the way out.